While 2020 continues its path of destruction completely unabated, us climbers around the world are here monitoring the news for any signs of easing restrictions so that we can go back to pulling on some rock or plastic and blow a tendon or two in the process. Some of you guys have gotten pretty creative to continue sending during these tough times. For others, well, we turn to building our own personal home climbing walls, also known as the Woody. So in this video, I'm going to take you guys on a bit of a tour of my own setup, the costs of the build, and specifically the little mistakes I learned and would correct if I ever made another one in the future. Hopefully it'll help you guys who are considering making your own walls at home and save some time and money along the way by avoiding these costly mistakes. So first things first, space. I personally wanted to make this thing as big as possible, you know, to actually make it fun. But most roofs here in Australia have a 2.4 meter ceiling cap. So my choices were to sacrifice height to have it built under a roof here in the carport, or have it outside at the mercy of the elements. I opted for the latter because in this case, size does matter. The total area of the climbing wall encompasses a 2.5 meter by 3 meter floor space and a height of 3 meters at a 30-degree angle. Now, we chose 30 degrees because Jen is one of the only channels who actually shows what that angle looks like from a side-on perspective, and it looked to be the right amount of fun and difficulty. We didn't want to go any less because we did want it to be a training tool, but any more and we felt like we would have just lost a lot of the fun from it all. So shout out to Jen for showing us the angle steepness on her wall, and I'm sure if you guys are watching this video, you're probably already subscribed to her channel, but it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of a reminder just in case. And for anyone that's still unsure what 30 degrees actually looks like, here's one of the climbs I set in 3 different angles to give you guys a better look overall. Now, what I would have done differently here are a few different design changes. Specifically, I think a variable angle wall with a winch to pull it backwards would have helped to actually be able to set more different climbs. Of course, that would have cost a lot more, but I think if you're opting for a single wall design, the varied angle does keep things fresh since it's really easy for you to get bored of your climbs after you've sent all of your routes. For this current design, however, I'm planning on installing just a single-sided wall to have a pure vertical section, as well as for when the family want to have a go and just have a bit more variety of climbs overall. I wouldn't mind potentially building a small roof or even just a little bit of a lip at the top as well, specifically just to protect the wall from the elements a bit better. Since the back of the wall is completely exposed, we do have a tarp to cover the wall when we're not using it. But to protect it, I would suggest just cutting the tarp to size and stapling it down for a more semi-permanent cover and having a rolling tarp for the front just to protect the wall from the elements. When the wind blows, the thing is a bitch to anchor down, so at the base I would suggest installing a little bit of a ring loop so that you can tie it down to, so it's not blowing all over the place. Now, getting back to the wall, let's talk about point number 2, materials. We have a 35 centimeter high kickboard here at the bottom, followed by a 60 centimeter ply for the first panel, and then 2 120 centimeter plies for the middle and the top. All of them are 2.4 meters in length and 18 millimeters in thickness. According to most suggestions online, anything less than 17 millimeters will flex and inevitably pop the T-nuts out. The ply, and for that matter all timber, for obvious reasons, are all pre-treated. This will end up costing more, so if you're building indoors, you can probably save a few extra dollars. But remember that it's not just the rain that you're trying to protect it from, it's things like morning dew or humidity. So honestly, for me, it's still worth buying pre-treated timber just to avoid any unnecessary blowing of the wood in the future. Each of the beams are 2x10s and secured by these structural bolts, and the plyboards are secured both with nails and screws. A nice coating of weatherproof paint as well on the beams gives it a little bit more protection from the weather. And here's probably where my biggest fuck up was, because we ended up buying regular steel T-nuts, which again, perfectly fine for indoors, but out here I needed stainless steel T-nuts just to avoid rusting. Uncarved actually suggests an alternative here if you're on a budget, and that's to buy regular steel T-nuts, throw them into a bag, spray a corrosive preventative on them, and shake the bag just to coat the T-nuts. For now, honestly, I'm just probably going to deal with the mistake that I made, protect it as best as I can with some good old WD-40, and when they finally give out, I'll probably just replace the entire board with proper stainless steel T-nuts. I'd also probably opt for the screw-ins versus the pronged ones, since you can see here over-tightening causes the T-nuts to actually pull deeper into the wood itself, which means it'll hold for as long as the wood actually holds out for. On that note, you could probably just not be as dumb as I am and not over-tighten, but I think screw-ins would probably just hold much better overall anyway. The stainless steel thing also applies to the bolts that you use. As you can see here, the difference between a regular steel bolt designed for indoor use and a stainless steel one that's designed for outdoor use. Of course, most of this is just currently superficial surface rust, but again, it's just a matter of time before it actually gives. The last thing that you'll have to buy are, of course, holes. We started off with a superset of 60 from Big Red Climbing, followed by a 40 set from Rise Holds, and I bought a set of bolt-on climbing volumes from Atomic Climbing as well. This can all get really expensive, so a tip suggested by a lot of woody creators out there is to just ask your local gyms if they have any secondhand holds that you could buy off of them. If you guys want a review of the holds or the volumes, let me know down below. Otherwise, thanks to having my own wall to film, I'll be able to review a lot more gear, so expect a lot more content in the future. So as you can see, I've actually attached a couple of ring bolts here on the wall as well, more for practicing how to clean on sport routes more than anything else. Now, if you don't have one of these, you will have to get one for actually screwing in your bolts. This can get very tedious very quickly, so if you have a drill and the required hex bit, it can save you a lot of time and muscle power. I would actually recommend hand tightening for the finish, since I wouldn't want to break the drill with the amount of torque needed to fully tighten the bolt, and I wouldn't want to over tighten with an impact drill in case I rip out one of the T-nuts in the back. Now, as for lessons learned on this subject, I would recommend just buying a few more bigger jugs. I'm a V5, V6 climber, and while the holds that we've bought have been fun to set with, sometimes you just want to have a really easy casual climb, going back and forth, just to keep the muscles going. As it stands, once you exhaust, honestly, that's pretty much it. The holds become a little too small and you just can't finish any more of the climbs that you've set. Now, an important factor here is safety. The kickboard down below has been bolted into cement, so the build is pretty sturdy all up. I had planned it to be a little less permanent by just having it completely freestanding and sandbagging the entire structure down, but the carpenter insisted on bolting it down, so who was I to go against a fully trained professional? The wall is over solid concrete, so landing is a really important factor to consider. We're running with 3 regular crash pads, but honestly, I wouldn't mind adding a 4th one in here for good measure, and just covering more of the fall zone. If you guys build over grass, it'll make for a softer landing, but your overall build will probably have to be cemented down just to give it a little bit more structural support. But of course, that is dependent on the height that you build at. A smaller wall probably wouldn't require as much support. And for an indoor build, honestly, if you have a spare mattress lying around, that would probably be way more than enough. But ours obviously being outdoors, if we use the mattress, that would get disgusting pretty quickly. I'm planning on adding either some rubber or foam matting underneath just to give it a little bit more extra safety and padding. And just as a little extra, probably cut a few pool noodles down the center just to cover the edges. Now, last but not least, building. Quite frankly, I don't know shit. That's why I pretended to be smart for the better part of 30 minutes and then quickly called a professional carpenter to help me build something that wouldn't leave me with 20 broken bones and a serious concussion. Having seen it created once, I'd say I could probably build my own one next time, but it was definitely worth the money to have someone else build it to be as solid as it is. Even when dynoing, the whole setup doesn't end up moving an inch. Now, one of the things that did warrant me hiring a carpenter was the lack of tools myself to actually do any of the prep work. No circular saws for cutting timber at precise angles, no nail guns for instant propping of the ply, no drill presses for making the holes for the T-nuts. Ray, our chippy, did a lot of the prep work at home, so all we had to do was set up for the most part, which only took a day all up. Total cost of the materials and labor ended up costing 1,600 AUD, which, just as a reminder, is more expensive because it is outdoors. And that pretty much sums up a lot of the lessons that I learned during this whole journey. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them down below and I'll make sure to respond to each and every one of your comments. Till next time, thanks for watching and happy sending.